As practice began in 1987, three-time Indy winner Al Unser was without a ride. But when Danny ONGAIS crashed in practice and was ruled unfit to drive, Unser stepped in and won the '87 race to become only the second four-time winner in Indianapolis history. Hello, I'm Paul Page. Following the career paths of brothers Jerry and Bobby, Al Unser made his Indy debut in 1965. With a smooth, heady driving style that kept him on the track and out of trouble, Al Unser became one of the biggest winners ever at the 500. With 4 wins, 3 runners-up, and 3 third-place finishes, Al Unser proved without a doubt that he belonged with the legends at the Indy 500, a race for heroes. As a member of the Unser family, it was only natural that Al would become a racer. And in 1957, he lived up to his name, starting with modifieds at age 18. 3 years later, Al raced at Pikes Peak for the first time, and he finished second to brother Bobby. It was at Pikes Peak in 1964 when Al Unser approached Frank Arciero for a ride at Indy.
I asked him for a ride, and he says, "You show me you can win." He says, "and I'll give you a ride." So, you know, that's easier said than done. That was Frank's way of putting me off at the time. But then I won the hill climb that year, and I went to him right after the race, and I says, "Here I am." He says, "You're hired."
Later that year, Al Unser ran his first championship car race at Milwaukee. And in 1965, he would race at Indy for the first time. Al struggled through practice with mechanical problems until A.J. Foyt came along.
He came into my garage. I was sitting in the garage Sunday. You know, I was through. In other words, there was nothing left. I'd missed the race, you know. I was totally said, that's it, you know. And Foyt walks in my garage and asked me if I wanted to run his second car. Whew, when he walked out the door, I followed him.
After 8 laps of practice in A.J.'s backup, Unser qualified for the race. Though he wasn't spectacular, Al ran well enough to finish in the top 10 with fellow rookies Mario Andretti and Gordon Johncock. Unser continued his association with the big names by signing with Andy Granatelli for 1966. His teammate was Jimmy Clark.
Andy Granatelli calls me up and he says, "Would you be interested in running the Lotus?" And I says, "Yeah, I would." He says, "Fly into Chicago." Well, I flew into Chicago, and Andy made me wait in the lobby for 2 hours, and I had a flight to catch out. And finally, he brings me into his office and sets me down, and he says real quick what everything's about. And he throws a contract in front of me and says, "Sign it." And I signed it.
Though his team was strong, Unser was slowed with engine problems. Missing the first day of time trials, Al posted the 6th fastest qualifying time, but started the race 23rd.
As the race started, it was just one of those deals of being able to stay out of trouble, and I figured that I had a chance of running up towards the front, and we did. The cars were not race day what we thought they would be, but they were good enough. You know, Jimmy Clark had problems. He spun several times. In fact, they still think, some people think that they got the scoring mixed up at one time, and I was actually leading the race when they said he was, because he spun a couple of times, but it didn't make any difference. We were competitive, and then the car broke, and I put it in the fence.
After a one-race deal with Granatelli in 1966, Al Unser joined car owner John Meekum and crew chief George BIGNOTTI before the next race.
Then in '66, I had Graham Hill, Jackie Stewart, and Roger Ward. Roger retired after Indianapolis, and Firestone and John Meekum wanted me to put one of the other drivers a sprint car drive in, and I liked Al because he had driven the car, and I worked with him briefly on setting the car up for Indy, and so when Roger retired, there was an opening in the car, and Jackie Stewart and Graham Hill went back to Formula One. I didn't have a driver, so I got Al to run the second car at Milwaukee, and we finished the 500 miles on the car that Roger had retired from. So after that, we pretty much had Al driving for us. He drove the rest of the year.
Unser started the 67 race from outside row 3, steadily improving throughout the day. Al was running third late in the race behind Parnelli Jones and A.J. Foyt. When Parnelli dropped out at 196 laps, Unser moved up and finished second. Happy with his finish, Al soon found out what second place meant.
They don't know anybody but the winner. It's funny, you know. In later years, I finished second there again. And I was very disappointed, and everybody says, well, you've got to be kidding. I says, no, I says, they only remember the guy that wins.
In 1968, Unser put his four-wheel drive Lola on the outside of the second row, but encountered some bad luck on lap 41 when he lost the wheel and crashed into the turn 1 wall, taking himself, Arnie Knepper, and Gary Bettenhausen out of the race. Bobby Unser went on to win.
But he's out of the car and okay. Al Unser, all right, in car number 24.
Al Unser and George BIGNOTTI returned to the Speedway in 1969 with the newly formed Bell's Parnelli Jones team. But when the first day of time trials was rained out, they ran into some trouble.
He and I were riding motorcycles in the infield, and he came out of a ditch, and the thing jumped over and fell over, and he had a compound fracture on his ankle. And he couldn't drive, and I almost got back in our car and drove it. I came very, very close to doing that.
Al recovered from that injury to finish the 69 season, winning 5 races. And in 1970, he was the man to beat at Indy.
I really felt good that year. In 70, when we got there, I tell you, we knew that if everything went the way it was supposed to happen, that I could win the race. You know, it wasn't a matter of finishing or running up in the top. It was a matter of if you finish, you have a strong chance of winning the race if everything goes right. We were the one that they were chasing.
To no one's surprise, Unser qualified for the pole. But on race day, Johnny Rutherford got the jump.
We came down for the flag, and I was able to out-accelerate and get into the first turn and led down the backstretch. But Al Unser's car was a little bit more than we could handle with the car we had. Al passed me at the end of the back straightaway and led the first lap.
I was surprised that he did what he did at the start, but yet it didn't surprise me. In other words, we all want to lead, and you know, I figured that he would be as relaxed or as easy as I was. Well, he wasn't. He goes after it, and I didn't understand that then.
Al went on to lead the first 48 laps before giving up the lead on his first pit stop.
Everything just went like clockwork all day, you know. In fact, the last few laps, they were yelling at me to speed up because they thought something was wrong. Well, I had a lap lead, and I let Donahue go by me, you know, because there was no sense. I didn't care, you know. I wanted to win. So it was a great feeling.
Unser led all day, pacing the field 190 out of 200 laps and winning easily. Al Unser became the first brother of a 500 winner to take the checkered flag at Indy. Returning to the Speedway as defending champion in 1971, Al Unser had a new perspective on life as an Indy winner.
I always hear about how rich you become when you win Indianapolis. Automatically you become a millionaire. That was the status when I was coming up. Well, it's not true. You know, my gosh. But what Indianapolis gives you, it gives you the opportunity. It opens up the door. It gives you the opportunity to go into some place and say, I have done this and that. And then it shows you, you know, you can work. And that's what it's all about. And I worked very hard that year.
Al's competition had also worked hard. Peter Revson set a new qualifying record to take the pole. Mark Donahue and Bobby Unser were strong as well. Starting fifth, Al ran with the front of the pack, and when Donahue dropped out at lap 67, Unser took the lead for the first time.
It's not a point of being happy. The race was so early that there was so much could happen all day. So it wasn't a part of like the last 10 laps when somebody does that and falls out and you say, ooh, that's a relief. I didn't give it any mind about Donahue dropping out because the race was still too long left.
After trading the top spot with several drivers, Unser passed teammate Joe Leonard for the lead on the 118th lap. Leonard dropped out 5 laps later, and Al never lost the top position, winning for the second year in a row.
I think it become automatic. It was a good feeling. I said, boy, this could happen all the time, you know. But no, it was good. It was being at a disadvantage that we were that year in 71. In 70, it was just the opposite. So we had to work hard in 71. So it made it a different feeling. It made it a different, it was still as great a feeling. In fact, greater because of the circumstances. You know, it's just, Indy's a funny place. It's hard.
Going into the 72 race, Al's chances for a third consecutive win did not look good. Bobby Unser was the favorite, sitting on the pole with a new track record. And Al's teammates, Joe Leonard and Mario Andretti, both made it to the second row. Al would start 19th.
I've always admired him for his savvy as a race driver in the race. I think he's as clever, as astute as any race driver I've ever raced against, as far as conducting a race itself. And he's proven it with many victories.
Driving steadily all afternoon, Unser was running fourth late in the race when leader Gary Bettenhausen dropped out. Al moved into third place. When the checkered flag came out, Mark Donahue was first, followed by Grant and Al Unser. Grant was later penalized 12 laps for a pit violation, and Unser was awarded second place.
That was one of those times that I got out of the car and I was very disappointed because of not where I finished, but how I finished. I wasn't competitive all day, and it was a matter of winning 2 years and then having everything go right, and then the third year the bottom dropped out, and it shouldn't have, but it did.
Unser was competitive in 1973, starting 8th in the rain-delayed race. Al moved into the lead on lap 55 and held on to the top spot for 18 laps, holding off eventual winner Gordon Johncock. Johncock took the lead on lap 73, and Al dropped out 2 laps later. Even for a 2-time winner, Indy can be tough. In 74, Unser started 26th and did not finish. He dropped out of the 75 race as well. In 1976, Al Unser became the first person to drive a Cosworth-powered car in a 500-mile race. Starting 4th, he eventually lost a lap on the leaders and was running 7th when the race was stopped because of rain at 102 laps. It was the shortest race in Speedway history. Back with a Cosworth in 1977, Unser qualified on the front row for the first time since 1970. He nearly missed the race. Driving a backup car, Unser hit the wall during practice, damaging the car severely. Unser was uninjured. On race day, Al charged into the lead from the start, beating Tom Sneva and Bobby Unser to the first turn. Though he would lead the first 17 laps, Al dropped back, but kept the leaders in sight. Unser finished 1 lap down in 3rd place behind winner A.J. Foyt and Tom Sneva. It was his best finish in 5 years, but he wasn't happy.
Well, once you win, not only at Indianapolis, you know you can do it. And you want to repeat it. You know, when you first go there, you want to finish. And then when you finish, you want to finish better the next year. And then it just continues to go up. And then when you're able to win the race, you want to know why you can't win it all the time.
Al Unser's 9-year ride with Bell's Parnelli Jones ended after 77, when the team withdrew from Indy competition. For 78, he joined Jim Hall in Hall's first year of IndyCar racing. Driving a Cosworth-powered Lola, Unser qualified 5th. Running his usual controlled pace, Unser eased into the lead on the 76th lap and went on to dominate. At 180 laps, Al was leading by 30 seconds over Tom Sneva when he came in for his last stop. Coming in too fast, Unser bumped an extra wheel with his right front wing. He was able to continue, but Sneva was catching up. Coming down to the last 5 laps, Unser's lead was shrinking by 2 seconds a lap.
And I knew that if I just continued with that pace and I didn't take any chances, he couldn't catch me. And that's what I did. It was just, you know, I don't care whether I win that race by an inch or whatever. As long as you win it, that's all it takes.
Despite his slower pace, Unser won easily, beating Sneva to the checkered flag by 8 seconds. Al became a 3-time winner. In 1979, Jim Hall introduced ground effects to the Speedway with a new chaparral. Though they were still sorting out the car, Al Unser was able to qualify outside the front row, next to Rick Mears and Tom Sneva. Unser took the lead from the start and paced the first 24 laps. Nearing the halfway mark, Unser led 85 of 96 laps and appeared to be headed for his 4th victory. But smoke and a small flame came from the rear of his car. He was black flagged.
It was just a misfortune of not knowing the race car. It didn't have enough cooling on the gearbox, and it burnt the gearbox down. And that's the only thing that caused it. If we would have been able to foresee that and run some ducts to it or whatever they would do to it, we would have been all right.
Coming into the 1980 race, the chaparral would be the car to beat, but Unser wouldn't be the driver.
I still don't regret leaving, you know, Hall. We had our differences, and we didn't agree upon them, and when you have that, you're not happy. So I left.
Driving the car Unser had abandoned, Johnny Rutherford won the pole and the race easily. Unser took it in stride.
When you make a decision, you can't go back and say, God, I'm really sorry I did that. I was not sorry. I knew. Sure, I can look back now and say, I could have won the race. Well, I could have done a lot of things if I wouldn't have made dumb decisions or whatever. Whether that was dumb or not, I still think today that I made the right choice.
Following 2 years of struggling at Indy, Al Unser signed with a proven winner, Roger Penske, for 1983. Al qualified 7th, and when rookie Al Unser Jr. charged to 5th position, the Unsers became the first father and son combination ever to qualify for the same Indy field. On race day, Al Sr. spent the afternoon fighting Tom Sneva for the lead. Al Jr. was several laps behind, but would become a factor. Late in the race, Mike Mosley crashed, bringing out the yellow flag with Al Sr. and Sneva running 1-2. Bunched up behind the pace car were Howdy Holmes, Al Sr., Tom Sneva, and Al Jr. in that order. When the green flag fell, Al Jr. got the jump, passing both Sneva and Al Sr., then let his father pass.
You can't see 1 inch of footage that ever showed that he crowded Sneva in any way. He used the air Sneva was trying to get to. But that was helping me, and he was trying to do that. But he never cut Sneva off, nor did he ever crowd him. When Sneva got up close enough to pass him, Al backed off to let him go by.
Sneva, who had the fastest car, passed both Unsers coming out of turn 3 on the 191st lap and went on to win. Al Unser Sr. finished 2nd, his 3rd time as a runner-up. Unser spent 3 more years with Penske, but was replaced by Danny Ungais in 1987. He nearly went home.
If Al would have got qualified the first weekend, by Wednesday I was going home, because I didn't figure from Wednesday till the last day of qualifying you could get anything put together. There wasn't anything left. Good cars and good crews and good owners. So I was going to go home.
Many drivers struggled with car setups in 1987, and Ungais was no exception. Practicing before the first weekend of time trials, Danny Ungais crashed. His car was demolished, and Ungais would not be cleared to drive in qualifications or for the race. Al Unser Sr. got the call, and with just 3 days of practice, Unser made the field with a previously retired, hastily prepared 1986 mark. He started 20th.
That month, if you recall, everybody had problems spinning. All the cars were crashing. So I figured it was going to be one of those days. It was going to be a hard day to finish. The green flag drops and we go down, and Jose Legarza spins. I says, oh my Lord. And I touched him, and I pushed the button and called the crew, and I said, you can't believe how close that was, you know. So from that point on, I took it too easy. And then all of a sudden, they came over the radio and said, Mario's about to lap you. And I says, you're kidding. And when he went by me, I says, oh man, I says, I can't believe this. Being lapped in 23 laps or 22 laps, whatever it was. It really woke me up.
Unser was lapped by Andretti, but picked up the pace. By the 110th lap mark, he was in 4th place, and soon Al Unser was challenging Roberto Guerrero for 2nd place. Andretti was a full lap ahead. Late in the race, Unser took his last planned stop, losing nearly a lap to Guerrero. Moments later, Andretti slowed down and stopped in the pits with major problems. Guerrero moved into the lead, passing Al for a 1-lap advantage. 18 laps from the end, Guerrero made his final stop, and he stalled, leaving the pits. Unser not only caught up, but put a lap on Guerrero as well.
When we put a lap on Guerrero, and then when Guerrero came back out behind me, and I let him go by me because we only had, I forget how many laps to go, not very many. But he couldn't make up that whole lap, see? So I wasn't going to take any chance on Guerrero making me mess up or us crashing together, him trying to get by me, see? So I let him go by. I backed off and let him. And then when Mario brought out the yellow, I said, oh boy, you messed up again.
Unser's margin held up, and when he took the checkered flag, Al Unser Sr. tied Ralph De Palma for the most laps led in a career. He became Indy's 2nd 4-time winner, along with A.J. Foyt. In 1988, Unser was back with Penske. He ran well enough to lead 12 laps and become the Speedway's all-time career lap leader, breaking Ralph De Palma's mark held since 1921. His 3rd place finish also gave Unser a total of 10 finishes in the top 3, making him the most successful finisher in Speedway history.
If I go out here and run a bicycle race, I want to win it. You know, and when I go to Indianapolis, I want to win it. And wherever else, I like winning. There isn't anything replaces winning. 2nd place doesn't. They don't know who you are.
Al Unser's race savvy and ability to race hard without getting in trouble kept him in the running and made him a legend at the Indy 500, a race for heroes.